Each episode of Education with an Edge is meant to create, cultivate, and inspire honest discussion about issues affecting youth. Hosted by author, artist, educator, advocate, and speaker, Jaquel Lane.
Hello, this is Education with an Edge, and I am your host, Jaquel Lane. And today we have an exceptional guest with us, Dan Stokes, and I am so grateful because I actually got to work with Dan for a very long time. He's one of my ultimate favorite people. But a few super cool things about Dan is that he is a stand-up comedian, phenomenal teacher, and an advocate for STEM, but also a very dear friend of mine. So thank you, Dan, for being with us here today.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Such a sweetheart. So just getting started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, like your background, your childhood, where you grew up?
Yeah.
All that good stuff.
So I was born and raised here in Omaha, and my parents had 3 boys. So I have 2 brothers. I'm the middle child. And yes, I suffer from middle child syndrome. So my mom was a 2nd grade teacher. My dad was a videographer. And both of my brothers are actually either finishing up law school or getting ready to take the bar exam.
So you're good to go. If you ever get in trouble, they got you.
Right. Oh. Well, we don't want to manifest that.
No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so then I was a teacher with OPS for 5.5 years, and I currently work at UNO at the College of Information Science and Technology.
Awesome. Yeah. Yes, and he is, I can tell you, in all the things that Dan does, he is exceptional. So looking back on a childhood memory of yours, what did you dream of becoming when you grew up, and why?
Mm-hmm. I think, this is such a loaded question because I feel like we all go through like different stages. Yeah. So I remember being really little, like a veterinarian was my ultimate goal.
Yes.
Wanted to work with animals. Somehow that morphed into wanting to be an actor. So since my dad had some like connections, I was able to do some just fun, silly things with some, videos and films and able to get my foot in the door there. So I did acting all throughout like high school. I did some really cheesy commercials for some local businesses here in Omaha.
I bet you're good.
No, well.
I'm really good. I mean it.
And then, I don't know, by the time I was a sophomore in high school, the only thing I really like pictured myself doing was being a science teacher. And I don't know why. Everyone always is like, oh, this is the moment I knew. But like, I never had one of those like prolific moments. I was just like, oh yeah, like I want to teach biology. Like, I think this is really cool.
That's awesome.
So yeah, ever since then, I was on the path to being a science teacher.
Very cool. Mm-hmm. Very, very cool. Since this is a podcast that's geared towards inspiring young people, what do you think the most significant obstacle or challenge of your youth was, and then how did you overcome that?
So I think everybody has like a lot of commonality with maybe some of the obstacles that we face, whether that be money issues, relationship issues with either family, friends. I think there's a lot of like definitive like challenges that people look back and point to. For me, this is silly, but like I think like learning how to live just authentically as myself,
yes,
and figuring out how to love myself is one of the biggest challenges because that's related to everything.
Everything.
So identity and self-worth are a big things that we try to help instill in young people and work with. And so I think me going through that process was maybe my biggest challenge. And nobody can do that alone, I don't think. It takes like a support system or groups of people around you to help you figure out who you are and what your values are and your moral compass. So I think for me, like that was a journey, and I'm definitely still working on that, making sure that I live every day like just comfortable in my own skin. So I don't know how I overcame it, right? Like we're still working on it.
We're still working, all of
us. But yeah, I would say like that just because your mental health and happiness is linked to every aspect of your life.
And I love that you said that because you and I have talked about that too. Like we would see kids in the classroom, and I'm always so excited when I see that kid that's like dancing to their own drummer, and that's really cool with like being themselves. And then a lot of times, like as teachers or in education, we see that kind of change because somebody makes fun of them or somebody has an opinion about something. And it's like, to anybody out there listening, just like be true to yourself. Dan's so right. Like it's so not worth it. The people that love you will love you regardless, right?
Absolutely.
And then don't worry about the rest.
Yeah. And it might take more than one reminder.
Yeah.
Like,
Amen.
You know, as teachers, I'm sure we both have had conversations with students where we try to kind of hype them up or make them feel happy with who they are. And it doesn't always work right away.
No.
And it's a process and it's a journey. So I think, you know, just listen to those that actually love you for you. And I think that's really, really important.
Very much so. Very much so. So you have had, I mean, quite the career, and you're very, I mean, I don't want to say this, but you're young. I mean, you've done a lot. You've accomplished a lot in a really short amount of time. And so, like, what was your career path, and how did you end up becoming a science teacher and later working at UNO implementing STEM programs for disadvantaged students? I mean, how did all of that happen?
Yeah. So like I said, like ever since high school, I kind of was working towards that goal of being a science teacher. And I was really lucky because a lot of times people enter college and don't have that drive or that purpose. They're still learning. So I was really blessed to be able to kind of like execute and be very precise with like how I moved through my college experience.
Yes.
So I ended up getting secondary science and was a teacher for 5 years. But over those 5 years, I did my first master's in STEM education. And then I'm a couple classes away from a master's in biology. And so doing that coursework, I think, was really changing in the way in which I viewed the classroom and my own teaching style method and like the art of teaching. So there was definitely influential professors at UNO, which is where I did my master's, that kind of reshaped and helped me rethink the way that I view education, especially, you know, teaching middle school. It's such a tough age and you really have to get creative with it and figure out, you know, how to best reach those kids. So I was working really hard and I developed my own course at OPS rather, sorry.
Yeah.
It was a project-based STEM course that I thought was really unique and interesting and a cool way to teach science. So I did that for 2.5 years. And after that, I saw that UNO was looking for somebody in the position I am now, coordinating their STEM programs through the College of Information Science Technology. So I always joke that, like, in the world of STEM, I switched from the S to the T.
Yes.
I went from science to technology, but I mean, really, they're all connected and they are all related. So I applied and I think, you know, imposter syndrome is a huge issue, especially with teachers.
Yes.
Because once you're in the classroom, like that's where you live and breathe and grow. And it's hard to step out of that space where you feel confident and comfortable.
For sure.
So I transitioned to UNO and I'm having a blast working with K through 12 programs for students throughout the Metro, housed at the Peter Kiewit Institute.
So cool.
So it's been a really, really fun journey, and I'm happy where I am. And it's really ironic because we host, or I kind of help coordinate a high school internship, and there's a couple of former students that I saw from OPS
How cool.
that applied for this internship, and I just see them still out there, still, you know, pushing forward. And it was just a really cool like moment to see like, oh, like I recognize that name. I had them in 7th grade. Like it's really cool to see that. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's where I am now. And I'm really happy where I'm at.
That's awesome. And I think you draw on an excellent point that if we are truly believe in lifelong learning and being lifelong learners, that like you can always stretch yourself. Mm-hmm. And if where you're meant to be is in the classroom forever, and then that's great. But if you as a professional want to stretch and grow into other areas, and you're obviously impacting a ton of students on a broader scope now. And so obviously all the lives that you touched and things like that, and then to have it brought full cycle that there's kiddos that like you recognize that are now in the STEM programs that you know. So that's super, super cool. So you, are very passionate about implementing STEM, because I looked this up, science, technology, engineering, and math into our curriculum as much as possible. I'm going to throw a little stat at you, and you probably know this, but according to the U.S. Department of Commerce, STEM occupations are growing at 17%, while other occupations are growing at 9.8%. What are you doing, and what can parents and teachers do to encourage more students to engage in STEM?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a heavy question. I think first and foremost, we really need to reframe the way in which that we view STEM and talk about STEM or think about science. Because, I've worked in science labs before. I had a blast working in Dr. Kuksakaki's lab at UNO, learning about immunology and getting that lab experience. But that's not what science is for everybody.
Right.
And so when I was teaching middle school, I tried really hard to infuse whatever lesson we were doing with the idea that anybody is a scientist. Yes. And you use science. Like sixth grade, for whatever reason, this has always stuck with me, but we learn about ecological footprints, and we learn about sustainable resources. Yes. And even things like fisheries, where people raise fish, and it's an option for like sustainable fishing practices. And I was like, you think that the people who run fisheries are not using science every single day? You are kidding me, right?
Yes.
So there are so many careers out there that use science, but they're not labeled as STEM field. So, I think STEM is a really big buzzword where we can be like, oh, these high paying STEM careers or careers in the STEM field, which absolutely there are, and there's a huge need for those. But not everybody wants that as their path. So reframing how we view science, technology, engineering, and math, because I think a lot of times people get stuck on the engineering and math. And you don't always need to go that path to have a job in STEM. So I think that's maybe the first step. The second is, directed fully at teachers and parents, and that's rethinking how we teach science. So a general theme working with elementary teachers as a middle school teacher is there was always this one teacher I could tell he loved teaching science to elementary students.
Yes.
They always came with a great foundation. And then you could tell that some were maybe more nervous about teaching science. And this is echoed even with my own mom, who is a second grade teacher. She's working with my nephew right now because he's at home and doing virtual school. And she's like, I might need your help, teaching some of these science lessons. And I'm like, you can do it. You use science. And so teachers need to really get more comfortable with teaching science. And then understanding that you can do things like project-based learning and teach science in an effective way. There are, challenges with project-based learning. It's not, the traditional style of teaching, but you can do that. And then I was really, really lucky I had a colleague from a high school in OPS specifically reach out to me and pull me in on a project she was working on with her kids that was partnered with UNO and the service learning program.
Yes, I remember that. So cool.
So we did a waste stream analysis. We implemented composting at our school. So we did all these science things that are framed around empowering students to be environmental stewards or using science as a vehicle for social action. And I even think in the political, social, economic climate that we're sitting in right now,
absolutely,
science is sitting at the center of that conversation, whether it's acknowledged or not, right? A lot of the problems that we engage with every day can be solved through critical thinking or creative science solutions. So that's the meta, the big, yes. Oh no, let's not get too deep into it because we'll be sad. There's so much work to do. But if you're a parent, there are a ton of STEM-based programs in Omaha. I have to give a shout out to my own college.
Yes.
I mean,
please
we have summer programming. We did a totally virtual
awesome.
summer program this year called Academy. And then we have things like programs called Code Crush, which are oriented towards trying to get girls involved in STEM.
Yes, I was going to mention that too. That's such a big thing.
Yeah, and other partnerships we have, like Eureka, offered through Girls Inc. The UNO STEM Trails is a new resource. And that's kind of in collaboration or in tandem with this STEM ecosystem that Omaha's attempting to build in terms of like infrastructure of different community partners, like the zoo and the colleges and businesses are in on this effort to get kids more involved in STEM. So I would say, there are opportunities where you might have to pay for your child to be involved in these programs, but there are also opportunities for free resources or free activities that you can utilize as a parent to just kind of inject science into the conversation or into your daily life.
Into everyday life. So where can parents go if they want to sign up for any of those programs? Is it the UNO website?
So, like for me, like a lot of things are housed through the UNO website.
Yeah, that's good.
But I mean, you can Google
just STEM programs in Omaha.
You can Google STEM Trails in Omaha. You can Google STEM Ecosystem Omaha.
Cool.
There's just a lot. I mean, even last night I was just doing some preliminary, like, okay, let's see what's even out there if I'm just a person just trying to find something or get connected. But so just, I mean, I know it's like silly to say, but just like do a little bit of Googling, do a little bit of light research.
Yeah.
And if you find one thing, like latch on, find a contact. I know like my email address is like attached to some of these random web pages on UNO's website.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to email us and be like, I'm confused. Like, can you point me in the right direction?
Right.
Because a lot of times, like almost every entity in Omaha has a position like mine where our job is to coordinate these programs and connect the community with them.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love what you said about just incorporating STEM into everyday life, because obviously another thing I don't think of myself as a scientist. I guarantee you my family would not necessarily think of themselves, but we live in Nebraska, which is like heavily in agriculture. And a lot of the things that STEM can help with are genetics and all of this stuff in the agricultural industry. So it's super interesting.
And Lincoln has some amazing, if we can throw a pun in, it has a beefy agriculture program. I hate myself. No, it has a really robust agriculture program that is, uses science every single day to help, people in that industry, whether you are the person farming the land or the person using equipment or selling equipment, managing all of those resources. Like, it's a huge, huge piece of Nebraska's puzzle.
Absolutely. So I know that I can speak from personal experience. Dan is extremely humble, but I'm going to ask you to toot your own horn a little bit here. So when in your life can you think of a time when you made the most difference, or where you felt like you made the most difference?
I definitely have written down that I was going to dodge this question. So as a teacher, like, very few of us have those moments where a student comes back after 25 years and says, "You changed my life."
It's the Mr. Holland's Opus story.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it. Everybody goes into teaching. That's how that movie.
Let's be real. It's not typically going to happen.
No.
But I tried really hard to think about my own career in the classroom. And there definitely were some moments that serve as my reminders of why I did this. And I remember specifically, I ran a speech and debate team at the middle school, and I also worked with a high school here in town. And we were in the middle school in my classroom, and it is bonkers because it's after school, and they're the speech kids. Like you said,
they're fun.
They're fun. They do march to the beat of their own drum. And I just remember sitting at my desk, just watching them. And there was one student in particular working really hard on a persuasive speech that, in my opinion, was really meaningful. And he wasn't even talking to me. We weren't interacting, but I was just looking at him thinking, like, this is one of the reasons why I'm here. Like, he is doing research, he is writing, he is advocating, he's calling for social change. And so that was one of the main ones that were, or ones that stick out in my memory of like, okay, like, that's why I'm doing this. And I think for me, a lot of like those also moments happen with extracurriculars.
Yes.
And we won't get into the whole like teachers should do extracurriculars because that's such like a hot mess topic.
Hot topic.
But coaching after school programs like Science Olympiad.
Yes.
I remember one instance there was a student who got second place at the state competition. Amazing. Like,
yes.
But he was so mad. And so we went on a walk to walk it out. And we were walking around Lincoln's campus because that's where state's held. And he was just popping off about how his brother is at an Ivy League school and he's so successful. And his other brother is really successful. And he just, he's trying so hard to do all these other things and set himself apart from them. And I mean, really, it sounded like he wanted attention, loving attention from his parents. And we talked about that and we unpacked that. And situations like that where it's like, I'm not directly teaching him content in that moment. But being a teacher has put me in a position where I can help guide him through maybe some of those feelings associated with success and achievement, and give him tools to be successful in the future. So those are just a couple of things I thought about. Like, okay, like those kids might not even remember those. Like they probably don't. But for me, like as a teacher, I'm like, okay, like those were two moments where I'm like, great, like at least we accomplished something today.
Absolutely.
Something good.
Yeah. I love both of those stories. And I don't know, I would argue that I bet that they do remember those. Pretty impactful moments.
We'll see if they come back in 25 years.
Mr. Holland Opus. No, Mr. Dan Stokes.
Yeah.
What advice do you wish to give someone? What advice do you wish someone as a young man would have given to you starting in your career?
Nothing ever is going to go according to plan.
Love it.
I
Facts.
think,
Hashtag.
You touched on earlier, the world of education is so big.
Yeah.
And my mother was a classroom teacher for 35 plus years, worked teaching first and second grade, reading, writing, arithmetic, and that was her jam.
Yeah.
That's where she was living her best life.
Yes.
For me, I thought that that's what teaching looked like, and I thought that's what teaching was.
Right.
And so when I entered the profession, I was really happy, working hard, but growing as a professional and learning more about the world of education, I saw that there are opportunities for me to have impact outside of the classroom.
Absolutely.
And so the classroom, I'm no longer in it, but I could go back. I might go back in a different capacity, but there are so many different avenues in every career that you select. And it doesn't even have to be focused on education,
right.
But any career that you select, there's more opportunity than we're taught typically in high school or in college. There's a lot of avenues for success. And so I just wish I would have known, here's all the different options you have.
Right.
Because as I grow and that idea of being comfortable in my own skin, and learned about myself, I learned I can move in a certain direction or change course, and that's definitely okay.
Yes. And I think we're even seeing now, there's professions, I try to tell my kids, and I know that you did too, that it's there's professions and jobs that haven't even been created yet. Mm-hmm. So it's keep yourself open,
Mm-hmm.
Keep yourself open but keep learning. Since this is a podcast geared towards young people, what would you tell a young person hoping to get into a STEM field?
I think, really, it's just try it out.
Yeah.
So there is so much evidence to show that a lot of the disparities between students entering specific career fields is due to an opportunity gap.
Right.
It used to be called the achievement gap,
right.
But it's been reframed to this idea of the opportunity gap, that if you have not had the experience or had a chance to do something or try something out, your overall education or career trajectory is impacted.
Yes.
So, like I said, don't box yourself in and don't think there's just one pathway that you have to follow. Let's not ignore the fact that some students will have more hurdles to overcome than others. And And so if you are in a situation where you aren't as privileged as another individual, and whether that be your gender, whether that be your ethnicity or race, or whether that be your socioeconomic status, I think that we're trying really hard to provide opportunities for people at all levels of our community to experience and get involved in STEM programs. So I would say just try it, and see if it's something that you are interested in, or if it's a field that you wanna pursue.
Absolutely, and so very important right now for sure, that equality of opportunity. Who was a mentor, teacher, or impactful person in your life, and how did they help you? I struggle to point to one person. And I think I could ramble for like the next 30 minutes about all the people that have gone out of their way to assist me in my career trajectory. Right.
And I think that's one of the main things of being a teacher is you're part of like this mosaic of someone's life and journey and story. And, people will be like, oh, my third grade teacher was the one, like she had it like that. Like she did that for me.
Yeah.
But for me, there were definitely people who stuck their necks out for me and advocated for me and put me up and pushed me, to be better. And it's hard because I don't want to say that was the one, because I can never do all of those people justice. Yeah. There's too many people who have worked really hard to mentor me, help me, and just be there for me in any capacity that I need. There's people that listen to me complain each and every day. And I would say that they're an impactful person because, I'm able to vent and get those frustrations out. The mentors that sometimes are teachers.
Yeah.
I remember the first person who took a chance on me hired me right out of high school to be a speech and debate coach here in Omaha. Continuously supported me and always said like, well, when you win teacher of the year, I'm not going to be surprised. And things like that seem silly, but that's, I'm not
with you.
Absolutely.
It sticks with you.
Yeah. I'm not going to win teacher of the year because I'm not a teacher right now, but his words of encouragement and his just steadfast belief that like, absolutely you're going to be successful in whatever realm that you choose to conquer is important. So I try to kind of reflect that type of energy back to the people that I interact with.
Absolutely. And you've been a huge encourager and supporter of mine, so I can definitely say that that's the truth. You do exhibit that to everyone that you meet. So what's next for Dan Stokes?
Oh, who knows?
Stand-up comedy, actor, like we're gonna see. I said when we used to work together, I was like, I can see you on Saturday Night Live. Like I love Saturday Night Live anyway, but I'm like, you're just as good as those guys. Absolutely hilarious.
Nice. Right now, I'm really happy with working at UNO and getting to kind of flex my creative muscles in how we interact and engage youth in Omaha.
Yes.
But I also am currently in graduate school again because I have issues.
No, because you're a lifelong learner.
And I'm working on my clinical mental health endorsement or master's. So taking that and seeing wherever the wind blows me really is the answer I usually give people, because I would love to somehow merge the worlds of education and mental health, which obviously
so needed.
They're already intertwined.
Ooh, yeah.
But something in that realm of just utilizing, all the skills that I have and that I've been working towards sharpening.
And the thing that I admire most about you, Dan, is that you truly use all of the gifts and talents that you're given. And that's just something that we can all aspire to do, because it's really not just it's not self-serving, it's also serving the world. So it's pretty impactful. I always like to throw this question in there, and my guests are always like, oh my gosh, but what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, he tried.
Yes.
He tried.
And we have it. It's my favorite. It might be my favorite answer, honestly.
That's the thing. Not everybody can be at the top of their field.
Right.
There's not space for every single person, but there is space for every person in the field.
Right.
And so no matter what happens to me, I just want people to look back and be like, you know what? He was out there. He was doing his best.
Yes.
He used what he had to, work towards what he thought was right and just, and he tried.
Yes.
So that's all I can hope for.
I love that. It's honestly, it's probably my favorite one so far. No offense to anybody else. So finally, if there was one quote or motto that you live by, what would it be?
Okay. It's hard because I'm not like a quote person.
Yeah.
But something that has stuck with me, and like I mentioned earlier, there were professors that changed my trajectory of my career. And one of them, she does not take credit for this quote, but she says it was another quote that has manifested in her, and she speaks on it. But Dr. Pearson at UNO, she says, nothing about us without us is for us. And I've tried really hard as a teacher to take that to heart and recognize that I'm a white male in a field serving predominantly people who don't look like me, and understanding that I need to check myself and do the work and educate myself about other people's circumstance, situation, to best help them. And so in order to really help people and push people forward, especially in the world of education, I have to remind myself, if the people I'm trying to help are not in on the conversation, then I'm not really helping them.
Absolutely.
I'm helping myself feel good.
Right.
So that would be something that I'm trying really hard, especially with our current, political climate, making sure that I'm not speaking from a place of privilege and not understanding what people actually need from me. So that's what I'm trying really hard to live by.
No, and as we all should. So that was wonderful, and that was also a great ending. So, Dan, we thank you for the work that you are doing and for the lives that you are changing, and we are grateful for your time with us here today.
Thank you for having me so much.
And thank you so much for being with us here today on Education with an Edge, the podcast dedicated to our youth because every child matters and you are our future. This is Jaquel Lane. Have a great day. Thanks for listening.
If you have a question or just want to learn more, go to jaquellane.com. Thanks for listening to Education with an Edge.
A Parkville Media Production.